What grade do you give yourself so far?
So I give myself an A+. I don't think any president has ever done what I've done in this short. We haven't even been 2 years. I give myself an A+. Okay, effort.
I would give myself an A+. Nobody has done what I've been able to do, and I did it despite the fact that I have a phony cloud over my head that doesn't exist.
You know, he didn't have any problem with Fox on that one, did he? A+ went with that panel pretty well. You're back to hardball. President Trump has given himself, as he said, well, here, A+ is pretty good in his presidency multiple times now. And this morning he did so again, tweeting, we got A+ for our recent hurricane work in Texas and Florida and did an unappreciated great job in Puerto Rico. Well, this comes after the president called his response to Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico an unsung success. He did that yesterday. Well, a few days after that hurricane last year, he said he was proud of the response he offered, noting that far fewer people died in Puerto Rico than they did during Hurricane Katrina. Let's watch that.
I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine. We've saved a lot of lives. If you look at the, every death is a horror, but if you look at a real catastrophe like Katrina, and you look at the tremendous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that died, and you look at what happened here with really a storm that was just totally overpowering. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. 16 versus literally thousands of people. You can be very proud. Everybody around this table and everybody watching can really be very proud of what's taken place.
Remember Ming the Merciless in the old Flash Gordon series? What kind of a costume was that president wearing at that time anyway? What do you make of his bragging? There's 3,000 people killed in the Puerto Rico hurricane, and he was saying, we're going to lose a few deaths here and there.
I think as someone from the Gulf Coast who calls New Orleans home, nobody wants to be in a competition for how many people died in their hurricane, and no one wants to start bragging that that New Orleans Katrina response was the measure. I think President Trump is always going to give himself A+, and I think the risk that comes with talking about his Maria response that was so heavily criticized, now we know thousands died there.
Instead of 64.
Instead of 64.
Well, we got Ginger Gibson, John Brabender, and Jason Johnson. John?
Well, here's my question, first of all. How many of you thought when he got asked that question he was going to say B-, C+? Everybody knew he was going to say A+.
Oh, come on.
Everybody knew he was going to say
every politician
Was that a
says
surprise? He was going to say A+.
We knew he'd say
It's a dumb question, and he shouldn't have answered. Number two, though, look, this president has a frustration because when you ask people in the last election, what are the two big issues? It was the economy, and it was fighting terrorism. And frankly, he probably deserves an A+ on those categories, and he thinks nobody gives credit. So where he takes the bait on all this is he feels he has to be his own promoter. He has to do this because nobody else is there, but it doesn't look like what a president should be doing. And in the long term, I think it hurts him when he goes down that rabbit hole.
You got to be able to pat your head and rub your tummy. I mean, part of the job is you're doing more than what you campaigned on. And his inability to take any sort of responsibility. Look, the particularly tragic part about it for me is this is not a time to grade yourself. As the professor here, I can tell you, I never let students grade themselves, right? They're always going to give themselves a great grade. Rather than grading himself, the president has always lacked a certain amount of empathy for people in tragedy. And it's not just a matter that he was saying, oh, I did this fantastic job, or even making a comparison to Katrina. It's the fact that his administration lied and promoted a lie about the number of people who died. Look, that's the most egregious part.
Importantly, he is now reminding all of the people who were critical of his response to Maria that they should be critical of his response to Maria. He could have just never mentioned it, not given himself any grade, and now he's reminded all those people who were mad at him.
But he's going into voter territory now. Puerto Rico, you can't vote, or some of the people live here.
Except all the people that had to go to Florida.
When they come to Florida, yeah. But now we're going into Carolinas, two states he needs, John.
Yeah, but I also want no one's talking about what Merkley did, what Pallone did, which is to me even more unseemly. They hijacked this issue to try to use it as a political football to hit this president.
You mean Merkley saying he took $10 million
which
from
turned out not
relief?
to be true. He said that last night, and it turned out the money that was shifted was nothing to do with disaster relief. So what he did is gave false information to try to make this into an election issue.
Well,
that's unfair.
Well, Senate Majority Mitch McConnell is voicing more concern about whether Republicans can hold on to the Senate majority this fall. Here he goes.
I hope so. it's going to be we've got a storm headed toward the coast. And Lawrence, you've heard me say this before. We know the wind's going to be in our face. We don't know whether it's going to be Category 3, 4, or 5. I hope when the smoke clears that we'll still have a majority in the Senate.
John, back to you. And that's the question is, it looks like the Republicans, 2 weeks ago, I thought who was going to hold the Senate and maybe pick up a couple seats, 51, 53, they'll end up. I think now they got to fight for their lives.
Well, I think that's true. I think all these races, as Mitch McConnell said, are tied. And so the bottom line is, generally, they're all going to go almost one way. That's what happens. You have surges at the end. So it could still come back that it's a big Republican year in the Senate, and they're safe, especially if they win Florida and North Dakota and Montana, which looks like today they very well might, and
Republicans
Missouri.
will beat Tester?
I think those are the four that they have better chances than any of the other states. I'm just telling you right now. Go back and look at the president's numbers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between having a chance of being successful. What the Republicans really have to worry about, and what Mitch McConnell is actually talking about, is regardless of how weak and the bad territory that some of these Democrats are running in, they're in places where lower state races may help them. Andrew Gilliam may end up pulling Nelson over the line, even though he's running against Scott, who might be a better candidate. You've got what's happening in Tennessee right now. That should not be a competitive race. So he's absolutely correct to be concerned. And here's the thing. In a wave election, you always have people losing who you don't anticipate. If you asked me a month ago, is Beto O'Rourke have a chance of beating Ted Cruz? No. But now that everybody has admitted the fact that, like, we don't know what could happen, that may be one of the
thoughts. I completely believe in waves are waves. They work.
There's a wave, and McConnell knows that if he sits by quietly and waits, the wave is going to come for him. If that was a smoke signal to his donors, know the fire has been burning in his office for a while now. They've been raising money, and they've been concerned. And it's not just Tennessee. It's Arizona and Nevada. I mean, these are states that they held now and could lose. I think that about a week ago, the public realized outside of these political offices that there was some real concerns to be being had in the Senate.
I can see them only losing 2 of the top 10 now. I think it's really moving that way for the Democrats. John, you don't agree?
But here's the thing that happens, too. Surges really happen much more in the House than they do in Senate because they become almost like governor's race. They know the two candidates so well. House members are much more likely to get pulled into some type of wave one way or the other.
I don't think anybody's in a mood right now to give Trump a little, keep it up. You're doing great work there. I think at the edge, I think people are going to say, let's check this guy's power a little bit, at least. Anyway, the roundtable sticking with us. And up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. You're watching.